Hi there. Today we're doing a sleeve vent construction. This is the PDF that I'll be working through, which is on Blackboard for you as your reference. So this is directly related to what I'm working on today. This is a sleeve vent. So this is our tailored jacket sample. And the sleeve vent here, this is a non-working sleeve vent, which means that it folds back a little bit, so but it doesn't open up completely like a working one would. And then there'll be buttons on here, so it gives the impression of a working one. This is on an actual finished garment, so this is a jacket. So you can see here they've sewn the buttonholes just through the top layer. So yeah, it appears like they work, but they don't. No, they don't. And yeah, so this has 4 buttons. Generally, a tailored jacket would have 4 buttons on it. That's just a traditional amount. Okay. So we've got I'm working in half scale here. So but as I talk through the measurements, I'll talk through them in full scale. So you're not confused about the measurements and how we go along. So we're starting with the undersleeve here, and I'm just going to trace it out. Remember, when you're tracing out your pattern pieces, to not forget all of the notches and your grain line as well. Put this on straight away so that you've got that as a reference. And that will go through to the final pattern. So the first thing we need to do is add a hem onto this. So we're just going to rule a line across. So on my tracing, as I said before, on my grading ruler it's 2 centimeters, but this will be a 4 centimeter measurement. So follow the measurements on the sheets. Now we've taken this one. So this is will be our fold lines. This is the length of the sleeve. This is our raw edge here. Next thing we need to do is just to go up the side of the sleeve. So this is our front edge of the undersleeve, the 4 centimeter amount, and put a little mark. Now, then we use this as a reference point, so put your pencil on there, line the lines up on your grading ruler with the fold line of the sleeve hem, and then go down to the bottom and put a little mark, so they're both on the same level, using the hem line here, hem fold line, as a squaring line. And then we join these together. So what we've done here is we've created a fold back for our hem facing, so that when that folds back, it matches this angle here. Because if you keep going down smaller, this area will be too tight when you come to sew it in place. Let's see what's next here. Okay, so on the other side, we're going to add an extension. So this is our undersleeve here. So this is the extension bit that we're adding, because that on a regular sleeve, that line would continue down there. So we're adding this section on here. So we're coming out again the 4 centimeters. And we just need to check. Actually, we can continue that 4 centimeters all the way down. And then we go up here. So we're going up this side of the sleeve 10 centimeters. And then we need to square that across. And then coming up another 4 centimeters at this point here. And then we can join those 2 points together. So that gives us our front section. And you can see this here, this construction. Just do a quick check. It could be that when you extend that line, the fold line there, that you might get a bit of an angle. So just check that. If it's a right angle, you don't need to do anything. But on mine, there is a slight angle coming down here, which means that we need to just do the same thing on the other side. So this turn back here will come out slightly on this side. Okay, so that's our undersleeve done so far. We haven't added seam allowances onto that, but we'll do that at the end. Now our top sleeve pattern here. And remember that you could also use, this is a two-piece sleeve, which is obviously traditional for a tailored jacket. But you could use it with a one-piece sleeve as well. If you use the one-piece sleeve, you would actually have to put a seam in the back there. So you'd have to cut this to open it up to be able to put the vent in here, because you wouldn't put a vent, you know, like at the underarm seam, because that would just rub against your body and look a bit silly. I've marked my notches, just need to do my grain line here. Oops, lost the dot already. So our grain line. So our upper sleeve hem construction. So we need to do the same thing. We'll put a, actually we'll do the vent first. So we'll come up our 10 centimeters as we did on the undersleeve, because these two lines get sewn together. Come out 4 centimeters. Continue, actually you don't need to continue that line there. We just need to come out here, and you'll put your grading ruler on the line here, which is our stitch line, to come out. So this is a right angle in that corner there, just like this one was. And then we come up another 4 centimeters. So whatever we've added here is exactly what we added on the undersleeve. So now we'll add our 4 centimeters for the hem. And we can just fix up this corner here. So again, because this is not a right angle, it's more than a right angle, we'll need to angle the hem out a little bit here. So again, we come up 4 centimeters from the fold line here. We put our pencil on that mark, line the grading ruler up with the fold line, put a mark down at right angles, and then have that going back here. And you can see that it's only a slight variation, but if you didn't do this around the sleeve hem, then it would just, you know, those little measurements that you've missed out on would add up, and, you know, to just turn into a bit of a mess around the sleeve hem there. So on the other side here, we're doing a mitered corner. So you can see here, when I lift this up, we have that line there, and that's the mitered corner. And what that does, it means that this edge here can be a fold, this edge here can be a fold, and we take out a lot of the bulk that would happen if we were folding, you know, all of this in and all of this in. We'd end up with like 4, 6 layers or whatever it would be in this corner here, whereas now we've only got the 2 layers and that little seam there. So to start doing this, we need to go up. So I'm putting my grading ruler on this line here, and I'm going to put a little reference point 4 centimeters away from that edge. And then I'm going to come up 4 centimeters from this edge so that I can get this spot here. So 4 centimeter line, and then we've got this little cross here, this little point. And now we just want to draw in that line as our reference line. Now what we need to do, we're not just extending this. Remember, we're going to cut out this corner here so that it ends up looking like, you know, this is cut away here. So we need to do the same thing as we did on, on these angles here. We use that point there as a reference point, put our grading ruler along the line there, mark down on the other corner, and that way. So these lines here are acting as mirror lines. And then we connect that back to that corner there. On the other side, put our pencil there, line our grading ruler up with the fold, come down to the bottom there for our reference point, and then join those together again. And that's our corner, our mitered corner. So that's our pattern pieces complete. Now we just need to add seam allowances around them. So again, I'm doing half scale, so it's only a half centimeter seam allowance. And no, so we don't need to add a seam allowance onto the bottom of the hem because the hem is really a big seam allowance anyway. And the same on the vent here. And I've drawn that line, but actually didn't need that line. So we'll just rub that out. So, but we do need seam allowances down this side of the sleeve and along the top of the vent as well, because we'll be sewing this line onto this line here on the other sleeve. And really try to get into the habit of manipulating your grading ruler to help you create the seam allowances that you need. And what you can also do too, if you extended these lines here, they would be very long and be a really long point. So what I do is I usually have this corner here, because this line here is going to sew onto this line here, so you don't need all of this stuff here. So just come 1 centimeter above that point there, so that you've got, so you don't actually need all of that pointy bit there. So our notches, we need a notch for the fold line. We need to extend the notches on the side and on the sleeve onto our raw edges. And we'll have another notch down here as well, just to indicate the fold. Putting seam allowances on our upper sleeve, and because this is the line that gets sewn together as I showed you before, this line here, we do need to add seam allowances onto these. It wouldn't be the end of the world if you did add seam allowances onto the edge of the hem and the facing, but it's just not necessary. And then another thing we have to do is just extend this line here so we can have a notch in the middle, because we need to fold this in half and then sew that corner. And like I said just before, learn to use your grading ruler to help you create your seam allowances. Like rather than going, along, like this all the way and then joining those together. Now the last thing here, I won't actually draw these lines on the pattern piece itself because there's already a lot happening here, but you can see where I've actually created these pieces here, which are the interfacing pieces for the hem and for the vent, just to give it some extra support. So that would be in here just to give that that fold line a bit of body as well. So the fusing doesn't stop all right on the fold line, it actually extends to the outside here 2 centimeters up. So we really get a nice a nice solid fold around the sleeve hem. And you can, and these pattern pieces here, you could mark them separately. You could trace them out separately, which makes it much easier to cut, or you could just draw them on your pattern piece, and then you'd have to work, around about tracing those around when you want to make those these in actual cut fusing. And lastly, there's a link here to the video on YouTube, which is the sewing video for this construction. So it'll show you how to sew the sleeve hem.